This is the Nations Conspire channel. Welcome to today's show. Donald Trump has declared a national emergency. And of course, it's a national emergency because of something that Donald Trump pretended to start with Canada, even though Canada and America are working together to convince the civilians that is what is in their best interest is a North American Union. That's what this is about for anybody out there wondering. The pissing contest, the back and forth. I've covered it in recent videos on numerous channels that I have. This is nothing more than a show. Obviously, a tariff war only affects the civilians, but the reason they need to do this is because they can't overnight just have Canada become the 51st state. Donald Trump has been planting seeds about Canada becoming the 51st state so that people out there desensitize to it when it happens. And we're seeing the response to that as the MAGA sheeple don't seem to have the slightest clue about the North American Union. And that's all that this is about. They are trying to create a North American Union superstate. The United States of America, Greenland, and Canada, and potentially in the future, Mexico as well. Now, on multiple different North American Union maps, Mexico is either on some or off of that map in other circumstances. With all of the stuff going on with the United States and Mexico, I doubt that they become a part of the North American Union anytime soon because, of course, we need this division between America and Mexico in the border so that the globalists could bring in a digital ID. So they have to keep that border closed so that they can convince you that they're going to stop crime, that all the drugs are going to stop pouring in because they've invented a digital ID and illegals won't be able to cross anymore without one. And that's obviously the point. But what they're doing here is attempting to create a superstate. This is part of the 10 Kingdom plan like I've covered. And I want to read to you what Donald Trump tweeted out on his Truth Social account. Based on Ontario, Canada, placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I have instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, March the 12th. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250% to 390% on various U.S. dairy products, which has long been considered outrageous. I will shortly be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow the U.S. to quickly do what has to be done to alleviate this abusive threat from Canada if other egregious long-time tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada. I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariffs on cars coming into the U.S., which will essentially permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. Those cars can easily be made in the USA. Also, Canada pays very little for national security, relying on the United States for military protection. We are subsidizing Canada to the tune of more than $200 billion a year. Why? This cannot continue. The only thing that makes sense is for Canada to become our cherished 51st state. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. Canadians' taxes will be very substantially reduced. They will be more secure, militarily and otherwise, than ever before. There would no longer be a northern border problem. And the greatest and most powerful nation in the world will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever. And Canada will be a big part of that. The artificial line of separation drawn many years ago will finally disappear. And we will have the safest and most beautiful nation anywhere in the world. And your brilliant anthem, O Canada, will continue to play, but now representing a great and powerful state within the greatest nation that the world has ever seen. So this tariff war that's going on back and forth, there's a lot of people that don't even understand what it actually means. So what you're seeing is two politicians who are actors, who are friends, tariffing one another. And every time America tariffs Canada, Canada tariffs them back. And of course, who ends up fitting the bill for this? Well, the civilians do. Both countries end up fitting the bill until, of course, one country will eventually give in. A tariff is a tax that a country adds to goods that come from other countries. It makes imported products more expensive so that local businesses can compete better. Why can tariffs be a problem? Well, they could be a problem because they can make things more expensive for everyone. If a country adds a tariff on toys, people have to pay more for those toys, right? So all the other stuff that you hear, metals being tariffed, automobiles being tariffed, right? This is forcing one of the sides to cave to the other side. And it's going to go on. There's going to be a seesaw, a fake tug of war, I should say, going on over and over. And this guy, Carney, is going to play a big part in it. Notice how Donald Trump is trying to appease the Canadians, because the Canadians are very upset. A lot of them are very upset. But you notice how if you're Donald Trump and you're sitting there and this was real life, let's pretend, right? Which it's not. This is scripted. This is them bringing about the globalist New World Order agenda. They need to do these things in order to get people to accept it. But let's say it was real. If you were Donald Trump and you were looking at Canada, you were saying, I really want the people there to actually want this. Because then if the people actually want it, there might be a chance that the government caves into it, maybe, perhaps, somehow, some way, right? And if you were thinking that way, the first thing you would bring up is eliminating the carbon tax. Because there's nothing in Canada that drives people more crazy than the carbon tax. In fact, maybe he would even bring attention to the fact that most Canadians are unarmed civilians, right? These are things that he could talk about. But of course, in the state that we're heading towards, in this North American Union, a lot of these laws that are in Canada, once we merge, are going to filter down here, specifically the carbon tax. Because at this point, it doesn't really matter to the government if the civilians are armed. What matters most is a carbon tax, because most people are so weakened and have become so weakened that there is no real threat of a revolution actually occurring. So Trump declares a national emergency. This shows you what a show it is, right? Trump's the one who started the tariff war, but he's also the one who supposedly, of course, because this is a show, signed all these things into place when he was in power. Right now he's saying it's not fair. This isn't fair. That's not fair, right? Working, of course, with the Republican Canadian politicians who are threatening to shut off electricity. He even goes on to say, why would our country allow another country to supply us with electricity, even for a small area? Who made these decisions and why? And can you imagine Canada stooping so low as to use electricity that so affects the life of innocent people as a bargaining chip and threat? They will pay a financial price for this so big that it'll be read about in history books for many years to come. And it will be read about in scripted history books, because eventually this does not end with America conceding or falling to Canadian tariffs. This ends with Canada and America becoming one as part of a North American Union. Remember, we're the United States of America. They're Canada, but we are in North America. The North American Union, tied in, of course, with Greenland eventually needing the United States and giving into the United States, which is part of the show. The civilians think that they have some type of say in this, right? The Canadians are going, we don't want to be, we're saying no to that. America can become a part of Canada, right? People in Greenland getting interviewed by the local news, like, we don't want any part of that. Well, you don't have a choice in having any part of it. They're conditioning you into it so that when it happens, you become so desensitized to hearing it over and over about Canada merging and Greenland merging that you just accept it. Instead of it happening overnight and you revolting against it, you turning on the government officials who put this in place, they're pretending that this is all happening because of arguments and debates and because of alpha males like Donald Trump. That's the illusion, to make you think that all this stuff is just naturally great. People should be able to see through it. Because if Trump was a businessman, none of this stuff would make sense for a businessman to do. But MAGA people are so blind, they can't even see past the fact that Donald Trump is not promoting electric vehicles, right? Another enslavement tactic. But they're so blind that they actually think this is a good thing. They think it's cool. They're like, oh, Canada's like a little brother. Come on over, you know? Yeah. Greenland, come on. You need us. We don't need you. We're doing you a favor. Meanwhile, you can show these people the maps from post-World War II to the Club of Rome and how this has been the 10 Kingdom plan all along. And how incredible that it's actually happening with the one guy who is supposed to be against the deep state, who's bringing it. It just shows you how good they are at hypnotism. We see a lot of the psyops and the false flags that the government creates, right? Let's say like the hook at Sandy. And we all look around and we go, we can't believe people actually believe this. And they do, right? It shows that we're awake so we can see through this stuff, but they're so good at it, we might be laughing at some of the stuff that they're doing because some of it's so over the top. You would think that it would wake people up, like the fake assassination attempts, like as if they actually couldn't kill Donald Trump if they wanted him dead, with the technology that DARPA and our military has, including their magic bullet, their smart bullet, which could go around trees, right? Yeah, they wouldn't even have needed a guy on a building to do that if they really wanted to take him out. But these people eat it up. And it shows you how good this psychosis is actually working right now, that they've given you this guy, they've martyred the crap out of him. Nobody out there was paying attention to the fact that the media was going out of their way to slander him, to vilify him, to make him look like the worst person on earth, deliberately. Deliberately, not so that Democrats would go vote for Democrats or people out there would go vote Democrat. They did that deliberately to work you, the conservative. They did that knowing how you would respond, seeing them constantly attack this guy, taking him to court over nothing, talking about his family, shaming him, while at the same time doing everything they did with Hunter Biden, right? Oh, they're allowed to get away with crimes. They're allowed to do everything that they want. The laws don't apply to them, right? Well, Donald Trump is being crucified. All part of the psychological operation. And all of that work that they put in has led to this. And now Donald Trump is the face of what is supposed to be anti-globalism. He's the face of anti-New World Order. And these people actually believe it. They've made him the face deliberately. And they've sucked in all the people who had a chance of waking up into buying this thing hook, line, and sinker. And now he's bringing in AI governance, New World Order agenda. What else is Donald Trump bringing in? Well, he's bringing in the North American Union right now. And who knows what else, like the digital currency and the digital ID that Doge is currently working on. These are all globalist initiatives. These are all things they've been talking about out in the open at the World Economic Forum, at NATO, at the United Nations for years and years. And now Trump's implementing them. But everyone's too distracted, right? Because he's their hero, because they created a hero through using the news to convince you that all these things happening to Trump were real. So they made a real life superhero for these people that they could relate to, right? Because they were losing free speech online and they couldn't stand the fact that they heard the government and the news talking about 4-year-olds getting transgender surgery, worked them to a T. Instead of the people saying, we're not allowing this. In fact, we're going to arrest anybody out there that does this. You aren't, you're not a dictator over us. You're supposed to work for us, which means the majority of people don't want this stuff. So it shouldn't be happening. And of course, people should be pointing at the MK Ultra that's been done to make people want to be the opposite gender, right? Because it's only through MK Ultra and other time periods nobody was thinking like this. They're not thinking like this because it's getting fed to them through mind control. That's what the news is. That's what the TV shows are, right? So this mass hysteria, this mass hypnosis is beyond anything that I thought we would ever possibly see. But it's incredible that Trump has been portrayed the way that he has, right? He's been portrayed as the face of patriotism, the face of nationalism, the face of anti-globalism. And he could bring in every single thing right now. He could probably bring in the mark of the beast and call it the mark of the beast. And these people would say, that's not what it really is. He's just marketing. Trump's, he's a businessman, the art of business, right? The art of the deal. That's all that is, right? Because they don't realize, like I've said before, that they're under hypnosis. It's no different than when you see somebody in a really bad relationship. That's exactly what it is. That's what the MAGA followers are. That's what both sides really are, right? You see someone in a bad relationship, you're like, why? And they tell them, you're like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's going good. And they continue, oh, that's fine, it's fine. Goes on and on and on and on. They can't see it in front of their own face. And then eventually the relationship ends, right? And they go, how couldn't I see it? Well, you were blinded by it, right? Blinded by love, blinded by the spell that was put on you, right? Well, that's what's happening right now. And what's even more incredible is that conservatives think that they're nationalists and don't realize that they're actually communists. It's dual communism. Democrat communism, conservative communism. What that means for anyone out there is like, that's a word I heard in school that's pretty boring. People who are loyal to the party above anything else. That means above your own family, for crying out loud. The party can do no wrong. You see how Democrats are? They can come out and say, hey, we're spending your tax money and we're throwing it in a dumpster and lighting it on fire. And it could be exposed by Doge, but the Democrat psychopaths, these people out there are angry that it's being exposed because they're defending their party. That's what's happening, right? Now look at the other side of it. Look at the other side. Look at all of these MAGA conservatives now want Teslas now. Donald Trump is pushing Teslas on them. They don't even see the stuff that Elon Musk is trying to push, like Neuralink and these humanoid robots, right? They're just thrilled that he's exposing the IRS. This is all deliberate. It's like taking off I don't even know how to explain it anymore, any better than I already have. It should be easy enough for people to see, right? This is a psychosis. They've given you the character that they've built up. And the illusion they've created makes the guy look like he's against all these awful New World Order satanic things, right? But actually, if you look on paper, you'll see that it all lines up with the globalist agenda. From AI governance to the stuff that comes out of his own mouth that's blasphemous 24/7, to the fact that we have golden calf Donald Trump statues that these people worship, or even some of the other stuff I covered over the last year or so, having the Ark of the Covenant at Mar-a-Lago. These things that he's doing, you would look at all this stuff, you're like, yeah, this doesn't really line up with a guy that's anti-New World Order. It actually lines up with the Antichrist or somebody who's bringing in the New World Order. But most of these people, again, they get their info from the alt-right media, which was created in 2016 at the end of the year 2017, right? When there was a lot of us who were reaching millions of people every day, that most people think we were killed or we quit doing this. They took us all off. They wiped us all out. And what they do? They stuck in Tim Pools, right, who were around the internet scraping for a while, but nobody was interested in the content. They plugged in Shapiro. They plugged them in. They started tickling their ears talking about trafficking and kids, right? So taking things that they know they could pull people in with without actually exposing what's really happening underground, telling you that it's happening on an island or this or that. And then, of course, every single day from this alt-right media, this is where you hear these stories about crazy things happening in schools. Oh, did you hear about this school? The parents at this or the teachers at this school are telling the child that he should go and get gender surgery, or the child is, they're promoting it to the kids and making them want to do this stuff. Manufactured news. That's what it is. That's what puts you in the psychosis. They manufacture it. Do you understand? The news is manufactured. So they manufacture the stories. Nobody ever asks one question about, hey, how did this teacher at this school get on national news, right? Did she call Fox News or did she call CNN to get on the news and say, hey, I'm trying to promote this trans stuff to the kids? Well, of course it never happened because it's manufactured. Then everybody sees it through the lens of the television. They think that it's actually really occurring. Right? They don't realize that a lot of these teachers who were in place or are carrying these things out are Eastern Star witches or Freemasons who are doing their orders to carry out this insane stuff. They're getting it on the news deliberately, right? And then their vision is blurred because you're seeing this stuff on the news. You're seeing it on Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh. And that's all you're concerned about is bringing back some sanity, right? Instead of us bringing sanity back and saying, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, how about a massive class action lawsuit against YouTube, against these corporations who are responsible for doing this? No, we just let them scrape us off, and then most people just did what the government wanted, right? All the people you used to listen to, probably still around on BitChute or Rumble, right? People ask me every day, like, why don't you just upload there? Why do you do it here? Well, do you know that the government deliberately sent people like us over to Rumble? It's a vacuum where everyone over there is talking about and looking at the same stuff. So how are you going to reach new people? You're not. Everyone over there will be into conspiracy, right? Maybe I could pull people out of the left-right paradigm over there, but I doubt it. But sure, maybe I could do that. But the majority of people are here on YouTube, right? The majority of people, Republican and Democrat. Republicans might not be uploading here. Conservatives might not be uploading here, but they're here. It's the most popular website on the planet, on Earth, right? They heard it, everybody, over to Rumble and over to BitChute. So they can stay in a vacuum, thinking in a vacuum, right? Not ever coming out of the box and realizing the left and right is controlled. They don't want young people out there. They don't want teenagers. They don't want Democrats out there to hear channels like this. Because all of a sudden they go, whoa, 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 what? There's a group of people who aren't Republican or Democrat? Where are these people? What are they, the Tea Party? No, wait, they're actually saying the entire thing's fake. And then we all present evidence of how it is fake. Whether it's documentation of government operations, we can go through MK Ultra, we can go through Mockingbird Media, we can go through all that. Or you can just sit here and use common sense and say stuff like, why don't you prove to us that the Republican and Democratic Party isn't an illusion, that your vote counts? How about we count every vote on camera? We have the technology. We watch each one written in manually, right? And we also allow regular people to run for president, right? You don't need $1 million to get on each ballot in each state, which would mean you'd have to be a multi-millionaire to run, because that's not how the country was supposedly set up, was it? Well, their brains just blow up. They're like, what? You're not a Republican or a Democrat? Most of these people who do find out, of course, at first are very bothered by it. They want you in the left-right trap. They want you to be the mouse in the wheel, because that's all it is. And it's a seesaw, a back and forth, controlled information, controlled psychosis, leading these people like sheep, hurting humanity, so to speak. So I went off on a rant there, but back to what's going on here. You're going to continue to see this tug of war between America and Canada. And no matter how it looks on whatever specific day with what they do with the stock market, etc., the plan is for Canada, America, and Greenland to become a superpower, a temporary superpower, because it's a 10 kingdom plan. You're seeing it going on over with Russia and Ukraine. Countries are going to go into fake simulated wars and they're going to merge all together. But you could bet your bottom dollar that all of the politicians are on board with it. They're acting it out so that the people accept it as reality, because the one thing they can't have is a real revolution actually occurring. And the hypnosis is so deep, we can all pretty much count out that from ever actually happening. The MAGA hypnosis might be more cringy than some of the stuff we've seen from the liberal people who, like both parties, are communists, right? Don't even realize it. Most of these people, when they hear me, the conservatives especially, they get so angry about it, right? You could lay it all out. They don't want to hear it. But like I said, the best way to put it is that in your mind, the illusion has been created that this guy is the ultimate anti-globalist, right? And then you look at the other side and you look at these buffoons, right? Like the characters in Hot Shots, etc. Joe Biden playing this guy who can't even complete a sentence, right? You say you're both sides are irate, right? One guy's a bully, the other guy is just a complete idiot. And in your mind, you have this illusion that Trump is so opposite of all that crap that they were pushing, and he is so against all these people, right? But if you look on paper and you go, okay, AI governance, $500 billion. Okay, wants to buy Canada, wants to merge Canada, US, and Greenland. And you continue to look at some of the other things, right? Specifically with what's going on over in the Middle East and the greater you-know-what expansion, right? If you don't know about that, you can watch on the website. I don't feel like losing the channel today. So everything on paper aligns with a New World Order globalist stooge. And if I showed you this stuff and told you that this was all coming from Biden, you'd be like, oh yeah, these people would go, oh my gosh, we got to stop this rant. But because it's Trump, because the hypnotism's so thick, they're obviously falling for it hook, line, and sinker. I apologize for going on a rant deeper into the video. I'm sure most of you aren't listening at this point, but we'll keep an eye on these stories with national emergencies, tug of war, shutting off your power, back and forth, until, of course, one side gives in. And eventually, Canada will give in. But like I mentioned earlier, notice how Trump didn't mention that carbon tax as a way of saying, hey, Canadians, want to come down here? We don't have a carbon tax, right? Because, of course, eventually that will be here. You'll see. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.